Welcome back to Eliances Heroes, where heroes in business align. To be part of our super community and find out more about Eliances, visit www.Eliances.com.
That's right. And thank you so much. Thank you back to the show. Thank you, too, for the feedback that we continue to have when I had on the President of the United Nations General Assembly. Make sure that you go to Eliances.com. That's Eliances.com. Well, I am super excited today. Why? Because she is a legend. And I grew up watching her show, and she's done so much in her life. She is, and welcome to the show, Stefanie Powers. She is the acclaimed actress from the beloved TV series show Hart to Hart. And beyond Hollywood, she spent more than 4 decades championing wildlife conservation through the William Holden Wildlife Foundation. And she can be reached at whwf.org and has done many other things. So Stefanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David.
Now, you tell us why you got involved and what was close to your heart to be involved within the William Holden Wildlife Foundation.
Well, I created it, so I didn't get involved in it. I was already involved. William Holden was my life partner, my big love, and toward the end of his life, he was a visionary as far as wildlife conservation was concerned, which was never something he publicized and never something he dined out on. He was a very discreet man, and so in the 1950s. Well before independence of Kenya from the British rule, Bill went out to Kenya as a hunter with 2 friends in the mid-50s, and they wound up buying a hotel, which they turned into the Mount Kenya Safari Club, which became kind of world famous as the jewel in the crown and a real destination for people to go to. There were 2,000 acres that surrounded this hotel/club, and Bill had a vision. He had a vision to create what became the very first wildlife conservation effort in private hands of a game ranch for the preservation of species, not for the hunting of species, but for the preservation of species that could live at that altitude, which is 7,000 feet above sea level, and in that climate zone. So wound up being 37 species of East African wildlife, but he really was a visionary to be able to see the need for this, and he was able to purchase the 2,000 acres that surrounded the Mount Kenya Safari Club. His goal was to create this extraordinary effort for conservation, but also to educate local people as to the need for conservation. Now, this is well before most people had the word conservation in their vocabulary, let alone the idea of extinction. So you could see where his visionary status comes from.
Wow, absolutely. That's so interesting.
So when Bill died in 1981, he had always wanted to build an education center so that local people, young people, people of all ages, could come to a central base of education and learn about the flora and fauna that the rest of us saw on television or in documentaries, and that the locals, had very little access to see or to learn about, and let alone to understand the responsibility of preserving these world heritage animals. And so the mission of creating an education center, which was Bill's vision, was to disseminate information to local and for local people at an education center that was specifically designed for them. So in his memory, I created a 501c3 public charity, which means that all donations are tax deductible. And we opened our doors in 1982 and never looked back. We currently, and for the last 20 30 years, serve about, well, this last year, it was really quite amazing. We served between 14 and 16,000 visitors to our little education center. The previous year we had closer to 16,000. Last year we had once again almost 16,000, but 14,000, that's all. It's a little much for us because we need to keep it to a number that where we can reach each individual that gets through our doors, so that we get the message delivered. We don't accept anybody under 9 years of age, but it goes all the way through the ages. And we are very proud of the fact that we charge nothing for the entrance fee, and that's because it's afforded us by the generosity of our donors, whom I love.
I've got to come visit.
Yes, please do.
Now I got to ask you, the characters Jonathan and Jennifer from the Hart, from the Hart TV show, were used their influence, right, and resources to help others. I mean, looking back, do you think that story in some way foreshadowed the life you would go on to live?
No, it's a fiction, but it's a fiction based on some wonderful entertainments of the motion picture industry in the form of a wonderful series of motion pictures called The Thin Man. And that rapport, that kind of mixture of comedy and adventure was very much the theme of Heart to Heart. But not of my life. No,
Right.
My life, I was very much involved with animals at an early age. My mother, I had a stepfather who bred racehorses, and and he also collected some exotic animals, small ones, not big ones, and taught me and was very adamant about making sure that I understood the responsibility of taking on the life of an animal in a more or less pet form, whether it's a dog, a cat, a horse. They are our responsibilities, cradle to grave, and we must assume that. He took me to teach me the hard lesson. He took me to a slaughter pen. I didn't see any animals being slaughtered, no. And
Right.
I saw them waiting to be either sold or taken away to be slaughtered. But the idea was that unless you accept full responsibility, this is where they could wind up. There were pretty ones, there were not so pretty ones, there were young ones, old ones, and they were all there because the people who owned them or who bought them or who bred them couldn't take the whole responsibility. And they don't deserve that, do they?
Not
So
at
I
all.
guess from an early age, I was always involved in animal preservation, in animal protection. When I met Bill Holden, I was already in love with the man, so it was easy to love what he loved. He took me to East Africa. I'd been in North Africa, but I'd never been in East Africa. And there I saw the work that he had done and was continuing to do, which I was astonished by because he never publicized his involvement because he didn't want to feel that this very important effort that was being made and was needed to be made was something that he was going to capitalize on.
And do you feel that he was the most influenced in your life, or who was if it wasn't him?
That he was the most influential in my life? Yes, of course.
How do you want your legacy to be most remembered?
I'm not so besotted with myself. I'm not photograph everything I do or am or whatever. I want the work to stand on its own. So the work of the foundation is the most important thing. It's not me. And Bill knew that it wasn't him. We're the vehicle for the work. And hopefully the work will continue long after we're dust. We've had over 1 million people through young of all ages through our doors since we opened in 1982 and received our IRS status as a 501c3 public charity, so that every donation is tax deductible. So we've influenced so many people's lives We have a sponsorship program, and our wonderful donors have sponsored people and changed people's lives who might otherwise have fallen by the wayside. We don't want to lose. We don't want to lose bright and dedicated people to the cause. And as we approach Earth Day, it's appropriate that we talk about the cause, because the Earth is in a terrible state, and it's our fault. So having it, because it's our fault, we should be the principal ones leading the charge to do something about it. Forget about the government, but any government, they all talk through both sides of their mouths. We have to do it, and we can do it because we are in charge of our behavior. And all we have to do is look in the mirror and see what we use, how much we use, what we use and abuse in the natural world, and do something about that.
Excellent. Excellent.
I always like to talk to, whenever I have a chance to talk to young ladies who love to buy clothes, I like to, and who are concerned or say they're concerned with the environment. Right. I like to remind them to please look at the labels of the clothes that you're buying. Most of them are made out of petroleum products or petroleum inspired or sourced miracle fabrics. Those fabrics are not biodegradable. They don't disappear in a landfill. They'll be here for 1,000 years. So if that's the way you want to leave your reputation and you want to be remembered, your generation wants to be remembered, don't buy fabrics or clothes made out of fabrics that are not biodegradable. It's very simple. You vote with your pocketbook.
Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful. And again, you're listening and watching me, David Kogan, host of the Eliances Hero Show. Make sure that you go to Eliances.com. That's Eliances.com. We have with us Stefanie Powers, actress, best known from the TV series Hart to Hart, also champion of the William Conservation, William Holden Wildlife, and can be reached at whwf.org. And I mean, Stefanie, you've done so much in the industry and so much. What advice do you have for, young people, young adults that are trying to kind of navigate this whole thing of how do they make a difference in the world like you have?
I'm not the poobah that has all the answers.
No, but you've done so much. You've done so much in your life.
I think you have to follow your passions, and if you feel compelled to do something about the situation we're in, whether it's immediately in your environment or in the world itself, you have to get up and do something. I think it's very important that we be activists. I'm from that generation that marched down the street with signs. We have to continue to do that, I think. We've got to get the support of our government, our politicians. We're coming to an election time. We can do something about that. We can go out, especially Generation X, everybody wants to grab the attention of Generation X. You want to be heard, but be heard in the right way. Be heard in a constructive way with alternatives, not just complaints.
Now, I got to ask you a couple of questions because I'm curious in regards to the Hart to Hart show and that. And you probably maybe been asked this before, but if there's one episode that maybe stands out the most, what would that be and why?
Well, my favorite episode was always, and it was Robert Wagner's as well, because we wanted to do this show for years, and finally we were able to do it. The show of how we met, how Jonathan and Jennifer met. And it was wonderful. We were shooting in England, we were shooting in London, and the definitive scene was when he asked me to marry him. And it was done, we were having an argument. He was driving me to the airport, and he stopped on the south bank of the Thames, not the Seine, on the south bank of the Thames, and he said, "Turn around." And we had a perfect view of Tower Bridge. A sign dropped down from Tower Bridge, "Will you marry me?" And I've always wondered what the commuters were thinking, because it was during the rush hour when we shot that. What are the commuters thinking as they're driving home and they see this sign dropping down from Tower Bridge? That was a moment. Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you to Stefanie Powers, the acclaimed actress from the beloved TV series Hart to Hart. And beyond Hollywood, she spent more than 4 decades championing wildlife conservation through the William Holden Wildlife Foundation. She could be reached at whwf.org. Stefanie, it's been an honor interviewing you today on the Eliances Hero Show.
Thank you, David. Bye.